Okay, we do have Dr. Koto, I see. Okay, and a couple other folks. So our room was relatively small. So what we did, instead of just using the chat feature for Q&A, after Mr. Koto or Dr. Koto does his brief presentation, then we just kind of use the raise hand feature. If you're not familiar with that, you can raise your actual hand. I am keeping track. And then I know Commissioner Malloy, you didn't have an opportunity that session to respond. And so I want to make sure we give you a chance to chime in from any words from the board in regards to what families are asking for. So.
Rahima, am I on?
You are on, your presentation is up. Mr. Ramirez, I see you raised your hand. I'm not sure if you meant to do that or not.
I did. Wait a minute.
Okay, so
I did mean to do that, but I'll wait my turn after.
I was going to say, I know you were in the last session, so you already heard. We have a couple of new families joined us. So I'm going to let Dr. Koto run through his presentation, and you will be first on deck, okay?
Actually, I think I'll follow Commissioner Malloy. I think she was waiting from this last session also.
Thank you. Go ahead, Dr. Koto.
Thank you.
No problem. Go ahead, Dr. Koto, whenever you're ready to start.
Yes, well, thank you, Rahima. And I want to thank all of you for participating in today's event. My name is Carlos Cotto, and I'm the Executive Director of Health, PE, and Athletics for the district. I'm also in this particular presentation with Tony Jordan, who's the Director of our youth engagement, and Commissioner Malloy, who's one of our board commissioners. So as I get started, I want to just share a little bit in reference to what we within the department as well as the district have been doing in supporting our student athletes and just students in general around access to opportunities within our community as a whole. We truly understand the importance of balancing both academics and athletics, or even just enrichment, anything that may take place outside of the school day, and how that anchors the learning for our students throughout the course of a day, as well as a week, as well as a year. So what I want to do is just share a couple of the things that the city is offering, to our students, and really they've been great partners in this work, given our current situation, being in a 100% remote model, and just trying to find creative ways to keep our students engaged, not just in sports, but many other things. So as I go through the slides here, I want to just share. This first slide here just speaks more of our pre-K kind of opportunities for students within the community as a whole, the play to learn and learn to play. This is something that takes place at the Trent and Pamela Jackson Arts Center, which is your school number 9 location. They're connected to that. At one point was called the Baden Street Center. And they do have a program that runs from 4 to 7, Monday through Friday, for our pre-K students. And it's open to students across the city in this particular program. The next one is our center learning labs. So the district has partnered with the city of Rochester, and I currently oversee these particular labs. So we have 9 learning labs across the district, or across the city, that support students in grades K through 6. These centers focus on supporting students in their learning from 8 to 12, and then from 12 to 7, it's open, as a center itself, but during that particular time, during the course of 8 to 7, students are provided with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then the opportunity to participate and engage in the activities that those centers have to offer. We do have at times some of our high school students that are meeting up with counselors or teachers just to engage in some learning based on their overall need. And that's kind of hit or miss at different particular centers across the city. This one here is a soccer, the city also offers soccer clinics and workshops. This kicked off on November 7th and will continue all the way through March. As you see, it focuses on students as young as 5 all the way through high school. And there's certain times that those particular clinics are taking place throughout the course of the next few months. For those of you that have students that have an interest in painting and drawing, there is the opportunity for your child to apply to be part of this rock paint division. It does have a focus in that of students ages 16 to 19, and the deadline for this particular application is going to be November 19th. And the Art Center has also just recently provided an after-hours program for students ages 16 to 25. This program is at the Roxy Sinkler Center, and it's open from 8 p.m. to 12. During that time, students not only able to participate in sports, but also esports, gaming, and other activities, targeting that age group of 16 to 25. This particular program here, I'm trying to get a little more information from the city because as you see, it started on November 2nd. And this is an opportunity for parents to engage with their students in that of puberty and build a level of comfort in having those conversations with their child. I'm looking to see whether or not this program is going to kind of replicate itself every 2 weeks. So I just wanted to share it because it is something that the city provides. And those are some of the resources that the families do receive and the students receive, and all this is done virtually. The Biz Kids is a program that the city also has, and this is for students that have an interest in owning their own business. This particular program will start in December, and it's a 5-day program, from 4 to 5:30, and it does break down what each of those particular days will entail for the student. And that, if your children might be interested in participating in something like this, there is the Eventbrite kind of registration at the bottom of this particular flyer. This particular group also then has the opportunity to kind of highlight what they've done in that program. And this is just to share with the community as a whole. So if you attend the public market, kind of going to support these particular entrepreneurs on those particular days would be great. And even to bring your children to kind of see what these young men and young ladies have kind of processed and planned as individuals that are looking at having their own business at some particular time. This crossover in conversations, outside of providing the location, which is the Frederick Douglass Art Center, that center is located at school number 12. They have their Instagram and their email there. But again, this is just connecting basketball to life and then some health talks. They have students from the local colleges that are in the medical field and have an interest in basketball. And what these particular young men and young ladies do is connect, their experience to the sport of basketball and then the importance of just maintaining a healthy lifestyle. As before I get to the last slide, the one big thing that I want to share is we also have our Student Leadership Council. And I know that Mr. Jordan is on the call or in the Zoom, and he is looking for additional students to take part in that particular training or be part of that particular program. I just provided just a sliver of what the community provides to our youth and then the community as a whole. I would tell you that Rochester is rich in resources. And the more, as I receive the information, I do try to fan it out to my department through the phys ed programs. But, just the value of connecting our students and our families to the resources within this community are extremely important in balancing that academic and those other social interactions that our students can have within this community are also just as important. What I want to share in just closing are some of the events that we've got planned from within the department. The one that's coming up next week, I call it the Journey of a Scholar Athlete. This particular event, I will have Brett Crandall, which is one of our counselors, along with his intern, London Booker, speak to our athletes in that of the Eligibility Center and just the importance of understanding that of academics and how academics will open those doors for these young athletes and that of their dreams of playing at the next level. I also am inviting an NCAA scout from our community to do a piece around the scouting piece. And then I have 6 former athletes that will speak of their journey with some Q&A and providing a perspective to our current athletes as they pursue their dream to play at the next level. That event is taking place on Wednesday of next week from 3:30 to 5 in a Zoom fashion. I know that there's a lot of questions in reference to that of interscholastic sports and where we currently are. We are setting up, or we've set up a meeting that's been confirmed as of yesterday to engage or to have some conversation with our parents and caregivers in that of interscholastic and where we are, not simply just for this upcoming winter season, but then what proceeds for that fall modified and then that spring, as we continue to assess and monitor where we are. And then the last piece, at least for now, that we have planned is Kim Batten is a former RCSD student who graduated from East High School and was an Olympian, track phenom, and she had reached out to the superintendent to provide some words of encouragement and motivation to our students. So I just confirmed that presentation for December 9th, and she'll be speaking to our athletes just in that of motivation and empowering them. And then she also wants to speak with our track athletes aside from that. That kind of completes the PowerPoint piece. I'm not sure if Mr. Jordan or Ms. Malloy Commissioner Malloy have anything that they'd like to share prior to going into the Q&A.
No, I'll just really briefly just remind parents that we know it's a difficult time. Some of the school clubs are still operating, and there's still opportunities for students to participate and be active within their school. So I encourage you to have your students or yourselves give a call to your school to see what opportunities are available in that way.
Thank you, Tony.
I just want to quickly add, I want to leave as much time for our parents to ask their questions, and I would encourage just administration to consider our parents' points of view and listen to our parents as we consider moving forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. I do have Mr. Ramirez as next on deck, and I just want to let parents know that we have extended the Q&A portion of our sessions because in a lot of rooms there are lots of questions we'll make sure we get to. So we'll be here for about 30 minutes for the Q&A session. So hopefully we should be able to get to everyone, and then we'll return to the main room for closing. So I'm sorry, for anyone who was not here at the beginning, you can either use your raised hand button or just physically raise your hand, and I'm keeping track of who's up next. So we have Mr. Ramirez first.
I would defer to any parent so that they have enough ample time to get questions to Dr. Cotto, because mine is questions and a couple editorials that were from the first session. So if we have any parents, I'll defer to them first, and then I'll go if there are no hands.
Thank you for that. I was going to say Mr. Delahanty sent me a question already, but I'll allow him go ahead and ask that question. Mr. Delahanty, you're on mute, just so you know.
Thank you very much. I was wondering can we find ways to do outdoor athletics for students of all ages at the neighborhood parks and schools, even in the cold weather, so that allows for COVID precautions? Can we bring the PE teachers to the neighborhoods, whether it's, Pulaski Park or the park at School 33 or Emerson and Glide or Cobbs Hill or Genesee Valley or Highland, Parcel 5, and organize, small groups in safe interactions, but in ways that they can be physical and connect with people. Is this possible?
So I would say in that of the art centers, absolutely. I mean, we can work with our art center staff. I have a direct contact to the individual that can plan and prepare those things at those locations across the city as a whole. The staff piece, I have to kind of work that through the district as a whole in reference to them. If they're willing to do that, that's great. And I think that's even something that they can do within the center models that we currently have, similar to what we're doing with our learning labs. But at the building level, there's plans and there's been discussion around that access as well, and trying to pilot some of those particular pieces for both outdoor and indoor. So I would say yes, almost instantly in reference to what the community has been able to provide us around all of those open fields and centers across the city of Rochester. And when it comes to our own buildings at this current time, we're still, that's all part of the conversations that we've been having.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat from Mr. Ferguson. I know that Dr. Cotto, you spoke to us a little bit towards the end of the first session. And so Mr. Ferguson, if you like, I can read your question or you can come unmute yourself and ask. Either way work.
Sure, I might as well ask out loud since I'm here. Cotto, how's it going? I just wanted to ask about if there's any possibility of the interscholastic sports happening like in January when some students will be there in person, although I know the vast majority are still remote. Is there any possibility of that, or even like looking ahead to the spring, or is it just too early to say right now?
I mean, right now we're diving into the winter in this November 30th start date. So I think everything, as these changes come almost weekly or even daily, we're just assessing as we move forward. I mean, right now, the way that the state is moving, November 30th is the low risk. They haven't made decisions in that of the high risk sports. There is a meeting with Section 5 next week that'll talk a little deeper in reference to what those high risk sports might look like in reference to starting. The month of March is the start of our fall 2 season, which is where football and then the spring will operate right after that. So I mean, we as a state and even as a section and even as a district, all of those pieces we'll just continue to plan, and then we make adjustments as we go from one week to the other based on the information that we're provided. So I would say that yes, those are all conversations that we're having. The meeting that we have on the 23rd, might have a heavy need in that of winter, but it's really going to be open to all programs to see how we can navigate and make some decisions to support all programs.
Thank you. Ms. Hines, did you raise your hand? I thought I might have seen out the corner of my eye.
Yeah, I did. I had a question for Dr. Cotto. The question I have for you is, if a child stays on remote learning for the duration of the school year, will they still be able to participate in the sports if there is sports? And how would that work if they could or couldn't?
So if we remain in a 100% remote model, will children still have that opportunity to participate in programs? That was the question, correct?
Right, like for instance, because my son is in the NICER program, I have made the decision that he wouldn't return come January. So because he plays the modified basketball that starts in March, or is either March or April and ends at the end of the school year, would he still be able to participate if he was still on remote learning at home, and what that would look like?
He would. I mean, that right now, even within the remote model, once we make a decision, students that are in that model will still have access to program. So yes, he will have access to those programs.
Okay.
Ms. Delahanty?
First of all, I want to thank Commissioner Malloy and Mr. Jordan for mentioning, that parents need to be partners in all of this. I think historically our district has oftentimes looked at parents kind of through a deficit lens, and the district as kind of service providers, which I actually don't think that we are. Yes, we provide a service, but we need to be partners. And I am wondering, Dr. Cotto, what can we do as parents to be partners in helping to provide more opportunities for our students? You did a great commercial for the Rochester City Commissioner of, the rec centers, and my family lives within walking distance of Adams Street. We're there all the time. We can see the great things that the city is doing. I'm wondering, what can we do as a district, and how can we help as parents? Because I want to be a help, an ally, and not just for my own children, but for all kids. And so that's where I'm coming from, is how can we utilize our power as parents to help you?
Well, I think, as we've gone into this particular model, the meeting more frequently is going to be important to engage in those conversations. I truly think the 23rd is just the start of something that's going to be a lot greater. It's not going to be a one and done type of thing. As I've been processing this on my end, I know that my presentation was heavily on the city end, it was really just trying to find a solution to where we currently are to support our students. But it's never been to give up on what we've been trying to do as a district in supporting our students as well. But I will tell you, Ms. Delhanty, that it will be that whether it's a parent advisory, whether it's that meets, whether we think quarterly or every other month, to engage in deeper conversations around the state of our athletic programs. I mean, it could be health and PE as well. It'd be my entire department, just to get that voice from. I'm also going to do that with our students. I already have about 40 students that have been identified across the district, minimum of 4 per school, that I'll be looking to set something up with them. If not, probably right after Thanksgiving, in December, before that particular recess, and then our coaches as well. So I think there's 3 different groups that I want to engage more frequently in conversations and discussions, to do what we need to do to support our students in our community as a whole.
Excellent. Well, you can count me in. You know that I'm here not just for my own children, but for all kids, especially my East High babies that we've been working with for such a long time. So.
And I think even for the 23rd, if any of you can help assist in communicating that out to families, I want to make sure that we're getting a good representation of our programs, when it comes to, so I did tell the athletic directors that I want them to identify those family members within their own school that are advocates, that are, sharing and always looking to do, always looking and inquiring, which is what we want. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to know how we can do things to better prepare our students. So we'll do.
Dr. Cotto, can you just clarify, you said you want to make sure that parents are involved in the 23rd. How exactly would that happen? So I know we have a couple of staff members on who can share with families, we can share, but what information are we sharing and where are they going on that date and time?
So it's a Zoom link. I got to work with communications to see how best to communicate it. I mean, it will be on the 23rd. It will be from 5 to 6:30. I'm going to work with Tom Mohan just to kind of find out logistically how to best communicate that, so that, because I know with all the Zoom bombing, all other stuff that takes place. And then, so that is definitely the time and the date. I will make sure, and I think as we close out these particular sessions, Rahima, is then finding out to make sure that I capture the families that I've spoken to, so that they, without a doubt, have that information, and then look to see how we can kind of champion it together so we get other families involved.
Okay, and then just one follow-up to that. Can you clarify who's gonna be at that meeting? I don't know if everyone heard that, like the 23rd is a meeting of who for the purpose of?
Parents and caregivers. Okay. And I think the purpose is twofold. I mean, my hope is that I'm gonna lay out some other information, also seek ideas and suggestions, not simply just for a winter, but also for a fall and a spring, and then look to see what makes sense with the group and moving forward on having continuous conversations and dialogue.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I know that Mr. Ramirez had deferred his prior question, and so I want to give him an opportunity if he'd like to ask it now.
Well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the Delahantes. Many of my former students for 28 school en route to East High School are now practicing teachers. So kudos to what they do for the TLI program at East High School. It's the first time I've gotten to see both your faces after 30 years in the district, but many of my former 28 school students and through the pathway of Douglas to East High School are now teachers in Pennsylvania, even here in the city school district. So kudos for what you've done to inspire future educators around the country. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. In all honesty, you inspired a lot of our students. I always heard about Mr. Ramirez, especially from Michael Reyes, who is doing great.
Oh my God. Those are the kids that I was thinking about, because I ended up in some of your projects as a classroom. Not that my classroom was the best organized, but I think I have pictures of dioramas, even with kids that didn't like my classroom practices. So I don't know what you did to convert them into Ramirez lovers, but I do appreciate what you're doing. And I appreciate, my daughter went to 28 school and she was a student at 20. She's 31 years old now, but I do have family members that are members of this district. And I'm a proud member of the city school district as a former teacher, always a teacher, but as an administrator. But I hear you guys talking about equity. And I want to thank Dr. Cotto, because he extends himself sometimes far too often, where he sounds like he's a public spokesman for other entities. So I want to thank him for the things that he's doing to bring opportunities for our students, even if it's not within his regular job requirements, especially advocating for programs in the city. I know that Dr. Malloy can, Commissioner Malloy can talk about the financial constraints, and everything that we do now in buildings has to be financial neutral. I want us to advocate just as importantly for kids to get back into the classrooms. As the principal of All City, many of my students that are older, young adults, struggling, looking to graduate on time, they're struggling. And so I'm hoping that parents will not only fight for access. I'm a former athlete. I wrestled at Brockport. I know that my journey has been defined for the qualities that I learned as an athlete and my determination as a wrestler. So I want to thank, I recognize the importance of sports, but I want to make sure we show the same passion in getting our kids back into the classrooms. And I'm struggling trying to find a balance in what I hear when I can't even have 10 people for Thanksgiving at my house, but we want to put kids at certain places. So I think this is a big conversation, and I like that parents are involved, and we should all think about what's in the best, the safety of staff and students, so that they don't bring anything home to those of us that are caring for vulnerable population. My mom is in a nursing home, and that's been another journey. But I want to thank Dr. Carlos. I love hearing from the Delahantes. I've heard them, they're legends. So thank you for your ideas. I think maybe Commissioner Malloy can speak to some of the budget constraints and if that will impact teachers going to rec centers. As we put out the things, should we come with solutions to the problems of making sure there's access? How do we do that, keeping in mind that the district is projecting over a $200 million deficit as you're working on now? And I don't know if Dr. Cotto can talk about the logistics of transferring people and moving kids. It's not like being in Webster where you only have 2 high schools. We have 10 or 15 high schools. So I know I rambled a little bit more there, but thank you to the Delahantes. And maybe, Carlos, you can talk to us more about what does it take to the uplift with so many different schools and transportation when we're 100% virtual. Maybe you could help me with that. I struggle with that, knowing that sports is a big part of cultures in schools. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Ramirez. I know you asked for Commissioner Malloy to maybe respond in terms of finances. And
I don't think I'm the best person necessarily to respond to that. I'm not the district spokesperson on finances, but I certainly am aware of a lot of those constraints. But I've noticed that Dr. Myers-Small has just entered the room, but I think Dr. Cotto might also be able to more readily explain that.
Thank you for that. I was gonna say.
I didn't hear the question. I came in on the tail end because I'm popping in between workshops. So all I heard is something about budget, but I don't know what that was. So
Sure. Mr. Ramirez was asking for either Commissioner Malloy or Dr. Cotto to possibly respond to the budget constraints and how it would be impacting the ability to bring back athletics, as well as some of the more creative suggestions that we have from parents around bringing PE teachers to some of our local parks or rec centers to provide outdoor sports in the winter session. And so after you responded, I want to make sure we also get a chance for Ms. Starpoli to ask her question that she put to me in chat. So go ahead, Dr. Myers, if you'd like to respond.
So as far as the budget piece, that's exactly what I asked. I shared this earlier. I asked Dr. Cotto and Dr. Black to put together what, given the fact that we are limited relative to the winter athletics that we can offer if we're able to move forward and do so. So I don't know specifically. I mean, we know what we have allocated for those sports. It includes, certainly coaching, stipends. It includes the transportation. It includes, costs for making sure that we're cleaning the athletic facilities. I think it's actually reduced because we would not be able to have many spectators attend. So as far as like using SSOs or the RPD, we wouldn't need that. So they are mocking up what that would cost. So Armando, I'm not exactly sure when you say, how does it impact the budget? We have allocated for that. So we're looking at what might be a little bit less given that we're a remote environment. I think what's most taxing right now is that because we are fully remote, working out getting students from home to either practice or home to the games and then back home again, and trying to figure out all those logistical pieces. But again, I'm coming in on the tail end of this, so I'm not sure what Armando is or Mr. Ramirez is getting at. And then as far as the question was about what are the being able to bring PE teachers, repeat that question, please.
Yeah, so it was a
Well, can I respond? So I was just commenting on some of the brainstorming that was going on with parents
Okay.
about the logistics of that. I wasn't proposing bringing people back because I'm still struggling with not being able to have 10 people at my own house for Thanksgiving and
Right.
where we are as far as COVID. But I was asking, this is a bigger picture. We are 100% remote.
Right.
But there were some people brainstorming, maybe getting our teachers out into the community and doing things like the city rec is doing. Some of the commentary from parents is that the city is doing a lot of things, and why isn't the city school doing equally the same? And so I did not know if there were budget constraints or contractual restraints with having teachers go above and beyond. So that's what I was commenting on, that the picture's bigger than just getting people to volunteer and do things with our students. And I know transportation and funds are very difficult. We're in a large district. It cannot be compared to Brockport or Webster, where I live. The lift is heavier and the logistics is significant. And I just said we should have a balanced approach, and with the same energy, trying to get our kids back into the classroom and focus on all the needs, not just athletics.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. I think as far as, we did do some things initially as far as thinking outside the box, where we have teaching assistants. We've got 5 minutes. Okay. Teaching assistants who are at the R centers, right? But that involves a MOU, a memorandum of understanding. So if we were to do anything, we'd need to do an MOU if we wanted to, say, have teachers go. So if that's something that we could negotiate and we felt that we needed to do that, that's something that we could approach. And as far as just getting back to school, I shared this in another breakout session. The goal is to get our students back. And even in the midst of a yellow, potentially going orange zone. I've shared that, I'm working very closely with Dr. Mendoza, and I have about 6 pediatricians or 6 physicians, one who is an infectious disease physician, and then the other are pediatricians that I've been working with very closely over the past couple of weeks. And I'm ready next week when we have our Board of Education business meeting to talk about timelines. I'm getting that presentation together of when we think, so people can have a clear idea. I have all of this information and I know what the multiple conversations I've had, but other folks don't know that. So I'm going to commit that to a PowerPoint. I want to get some feedback from the board, and we have that conversation in public. So parents, caregivers, the rest of the community will be privy to that conversation. The things that are, pain points, as far as if we say, okay, January 4th, we know that we're bringing students in specialized services back. And then hopefully a couple weeks later, we could bring a next group of students back. But we need to be able to hire nurses back. That's going to be critically important. If we don't have the nurses, no matter if we have, thousands of students who say we're going to come back, if we don't have that in place, that's not going to be possible. We also have a staff accommodation form that our teachers and all of our staff need to fill out. And if there's an underlying medical condition, so my husband has 2 major ones, he would not be able to come and teach or be in an in-person environment. So we have to go through that process, which we are in the midst of with our teachers. And we have right now several teachers who have said, I'm requesting this accommodation. So some of our families are saying, well, I want Laura Delahunty as my teacher, and if I can't have her in person, I'm not sending my child. But if Laura has an underlying medical condition, we can't make her come to work. She has to take the remote option. So trying to balance all that out. Transportation, we need to get back up and running, and especially for secondary, That involves re-engaging the RTS, which I did meet with the Chief Executive Officer, Bill Carpenter, yesterday. We had about a 45-minute conversation about what that would take to get back up and running in the midst of their Reimagine RTS platform. And then making sure that parents tell us, yes, I want to send my child to a hybrid environment. So I need to explain all of those pieces to make sure that it's very clear. I know this, and a few people around me know this, but others don't, particularly parents. So I really want to make that very plain and articulate that very clearly. And that's something that I'll be doing next Thursday.
Mary,
I know
can
that
you jump?
diverges a little bit from athletics, but I feel that the pieces are all interconnected.
Mr. Arpoli, I know you had a question. We're about to go back to the room, but I want you had the opportunity to ask it. You're on mute. You're muted, Mary. I don't know. Yeah.
Sorry. I guess I'll just say a quick comment because we're running out of time, but just the, you know, what the superintendent just said, everything is so connected. And, you know, I have an 8th grader who is, you know, she's managing okay academically, but it's the isolation and it's the social development that she's missing. And extracurricular experiences. She would have played volleyball. She would have wanted to do the middle school play. She, you know, is a softball player, which is her big sport. She's in the photography club. Our